Welcome to this helpful tips video for your final project, the Global Insight Report. The Global Insight Report is worth 20% of your final course grade. It consists of 4 questions worth 25 points each for a maximum of 100 points. The first question asks you to look at 3 cultural variables or 3 cultural dimensions that would be very important for Chipotle to consider when entering the Turkish market. I encourage you to look at cultural differences between Turkey and the US, identify those that are most significant, and explain why those differences may impact Chipotle and its success in the Turkish market. As a reminder, culture is discussed in Chapter 2. The second question asks you to look at the context of the Turkish environment, both the institutional context and the business environment. The institutional context and the business environment were discussed in Chapter 3. Some of the things that you might want to look at in terms of the institutional context are religion, the education system, or levels of social inequality, among other things that were mentioned in this chapter. In terms of the economic environment, you can look at the economic system, capitalist, socialist, or mixed. You can look at level of industrialization, post-industrial, pre-industrialized, or industrialized economy. You can look at the index of economic freedom or any of the other things that apply to the economic environment and were discussed in Chapter 3. The third question asks you to recommend a multinational strategy that could be appropriate for Chipotle to adopt when they open a restaurant in Turkey. If you remember, the multinational strategies were discussed in Chapter 6, and you also explored those in your forum on Target's entry into Canada. The multinational strategies are international, transnational, multi-domestic, and regional. The second part of question 3 asks you to identify a mode of entry. How would you suggest Chipotle enter the Turkish market? Through a franchise, a licensing agreement, export, foreign direct investment? What method would you recommend? All of these aspects regarding strategy are discussed in Chapter 6. The last question asks you to make 2 additional recommendations about anything that you think is important for Chipotle to consider from anything that we've discussed during this semester. The important part in question 4 is that it must not repeat anything that was discussed in questions 1, 2, and 3. You should not discuss culture again, nor the institutional or economic environment, or strategy and entry mode. Those were already addressed in questions 1, 2, and 3. Question 4 would allow you to make other recommendations that you have identified for Chipotle entering the Turkish market, but that were not already presented in earlier questions. I strongly discourage you from using Google to identify your answers. Students have done so often in the past, and given that Google has not taken MGT 3800, it does not make the relevant recommendations that are not based on course material and therefore not going to help you earn full credit for your answers. Please let me know if you have any questions. You're more than welcome to reach out, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the final project.